We're here to talk through this Fillomino by Jonas Gleim called Odds versus Evens. And I actually like this as a starter pack week example. This isn't necessarily a super easy puzzle. It's a fairly easy puzzle, but it does require you to see some things logically you might not have seen before in Fillomino, and it'll teach you some rules. One thing is just like, where are there good numbers to look at in these puzzles? And maybe these twos that collide are one space to get started. For sure, you can put this into the grid, but you're not going to see too much else you can look around the grid and use in that kind of mode. Hopefully your eye is eventually drawn to the first place. I think there's a key logical deduction to make through this grid, which is this lower right corner where there's an interesting cell that's one off of this one that can't be a one, so it has to be part of a hidden polyomino. And you'll want to be drawing in these shapes sometimes when you see a cell like this, particularly anchoring near a one is how this goes. And the interesting thing in this theme is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coming up here as a staircase ladder, and constructors use this a lot. What it means in practice, we've started to make a polyomino at least size 2. This can't join to this 2 because now it's size 3, but it would contain the number 2, and so this has to dodge. In this case, this has to dodge each of these values, so now it's size 5, but it can't join to a 5 and grow one larger. It's size 6, but would grow to size 7 if it joined that 6 all the way out. You'll see it has to be at least size 9, and this isn't the way it will play out in all other grids, but when you start to see something growing, you'll often run into a case that the hidden polyomino has values it can't be, and recognize those gives you places to start. What it now does, for instance, is functionally mean the 2 must go just to the left. That means this 4 comes left, the 6 comes left. As this comes down, the 4 completes, and the 6 has just enough place to complete. And we get this star in the bottom of the grid. Now, a few things to do maybe on the right and also the lower left at this point, but one other rule that's really helpful in Fillomino is a little bit of a look-ahead rule, but it's saying where are we going to leave behind an unusual division of cells? And here's a case we've got this box that this 2 is pointing into. If this came up, it's leaving behind 2 more cells, but you can't have this split into 2 1s, and you can't have a 2 near a 2. So here's a case where the leftovers would be bad in one of the 2 ways the grid can divide. So instead, this comes to the left. This makes another cell right here that's going to be part of, right now, an unknown polyomino, but it's not a 1 or a 2. And we can ask, is it possible for this to keep growing? And this corner works opposite to this corner. If this does not join to the 4, then this has to come up, but now it can't be a 3, it has to come over here, but now it's going to be forced to join into the 4. So here's a case where we do know the number this joins to if we do a little bit of look ahead. It is part of that 4, but now this is 3 cells large and can't take this cell to join to the other 4 that's given in the grid. Instead, it's got to come here. That forces this 8 up. It puts these cells through. This 8 actually has to keep growing. And now we'll probably want to finally look to this right side of the grid and see that there are still constraints. Like this 8 and 7 as big numbers don't have a lot of room they can grow into. Particularly, let's look at the 7 and how it interacts down here. This 3 needs some space to take some cells, right? It's going to like use this or this. And that means even this 5 has some space to use cells. And here's a particular cell to look at. Like this 5 will always have to take this cell. Well, let's say it didn't. Then it would have to come like this, and it's cramping out the 3. And if you see that this is a cell that's uniquely required, everything else we can't say. Like the 5 could use the cell, it couldn't. It could use the cell, it couldn't. Like those are all still valid options. But this cell can't be taken by the 7 as a consequence of the packing here. So this has to come up. We've got 4 cells, 5, 6, 7. It's got to at least come to here. And marking these into the grid, we see this 3 also can't reach to the cell, so it has to come over. And that gives us this split in the grid. This closes off. The 2 has to come down, filling that space. The 4 takes this. Here's another leftover situation. If I move up here, I leave behind 2 cells. We already know that's a problem near 2, so the 4 instead completes by going to the left. This 8 still has to come up, and that leaves this for the 2. Just enough space in this grid for that 7 to fit in. That means the 5 does come like this, leaving just enough space for that 3. 5 cells for this 8 so far. This could be 6, but this will always be 7 and 8. That marked in means this 3 has to come over, which means this 5 comes over, means this 3 comes over. And it's now 3 cells, but not able to join to these 5s. So this comes here and finishes as a W pentomino. The 3 finishes this way. This 5 comes up, but can't take this cell. Comes to here. The 6 has 4 cells if it doesn't take this, but we'll then have to take those extra. That completes the 8, completes the 5, and the 6 has just enough room across the first row. So we finish this grid. So a good hard for a starter pack week kind of puzzle, but a really interesting one that had different uses of hidden polyominoes here. In this case, one that has to dodge all the given numbers, and in the lower left corner, one that has to join into one of the early given numbers. And I think this is a good example for those who work their way through it or come back to it after some time of things to visualize and Fillomino to get really better at the harder puzzles that may not have this clean a setup with an obvious staircase of the digits 1 through 8 in the lower right corner. So thanks, Jonas, so much for this puzzle. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you again soon.